Okay. Hopefully the sound is working this time. I ran a bunch of tests. I don't know what happened there, but if somebody can confirm if there is in fact sound. As soon as I have that confirmation, we'll go ahead and jump in. Welcome, you guys. Sounds back? Oh my God. Yay. Third time is truly the charm. Wonderful. Well, my apologies for those technical issues and for getting off to a bit of a late start. Thank you guys for your patience. Oh my goodness. No idea what that was about. No idea. I didn't really change any settings. I just rebooted and I guess now it's working. So, technology. Welcome, you guys. Again, thank you for your patience. And we're going to go ahead and give it just a second longer. I know you guys have been waiting patiently. Thank you. But just for a second longer, have people come on back in. Good morning again, or good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you may be. We'll go ahead and get started here in just a moment. Yay. Yay, it's working. Sound is good. Fantastic, Sarah. Thank you. Welcome back. Thanks. Say the same for all of you. Hello from London. Hello. God, I miss London. Yay, sound. Yeah, it helps to be able to hear. Helps to be able to have sound. Like, even if we lost picture, couldn't do this without sound. So let's go. All right. Don't want to take up too much time because, like I said, we are off to a late start this morning due to technology. But let's go ahead and jump on in. Why not? Again, welcome, you guys. Thank you so much for being here, joining me on this lovely Sunday or Monday for some of you, wherever in the world you may be, for another live Q&A session where we just hang out, kick back, talk about the law, talk about manifestation, give you a chance to answer questions that you have so you can have better clarity and understanding into how to use these principles to change any aspect of your life. Not a whole lot to announce as far as announcements go. Again, just a quick recap. All the resources, for those who are new, all my resources are down in the description box if you're interested in more information on coaching programs or courses and masterclasses. I am, for the next handful of days, with Valentine's Day around the corner, and in the spirit of Valentine's Day, I am offering 50% discount on my Manifest Your SP Masterclass. So if you want to take advantage of that, that'll be good through Wednesday, Valentine's Day. Check down in the description box below. And I think that's about it. So without further ado, we already got about 85 or so people. That number's only going to grow. Let's jump on in. Oh, man. I need more caffeine. Chi-chan, you have a great question, as always. Missy, what do you think of the prayers and commands in the book, The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy? I feel like a lot of them are based on waiting for something to happen. Yes, I can see where that, yeah, prayers and commands. No, I can see where it may come across as that. I don't think that's what he was trying to get across. I don't think that was his intent. Joseph Murphy, fun tidbit for those who may not know, he also trained under the same person that Neville did, Abdullah, the Ethiopian mystic Abdullah. So they had a lot of the same teachings, taught essentially the same thing. You can almost call them like the fathers of the law of assumption, so to speak. They obviously had different ways in which to approach it. Some people would say Joseph Murphy may be a bit more like practical or explain things in layman's terms, whereas Neville was a bit more esoteric. He was a bit more spiritual about it, for lack of better words. Honestly, my favorite book from Murphy was The Secret of I Am That I Am. And that's one that I recommend to everyone. If you are learning about the law, if you're interested to know more about the law of assumption, definitely check out that one too. I personally prefer it over Power of Your Subconscious Mind because he really dives into the higher self. He dives into consciousness, awareness of being, and really explains even further that this is all about who we are conscious of being. And ultimately, that is what manifests. So, yeah, I think you may have been able to word the prayers and commands a little bit better, because I can totally see where it sounds like you're you're stating something and then waiting for something to happen. Don't know if that was don't know if that was his intent, but yeah. Hi, Misty. Sometimes in the sat state, random moving images come up and they are lifelike but look and feel like a dream. Is that basically lucid dreaming or my imagination getting better? Good question. What you're describing is a really fairly common in phenomena in the hypnagogic state or in that state akin to sleep. We may notice images, we might see faces, things that look and feel more lifelike. We may see swirling patterns, colors. It gets quite trippy. It's quite a trippy experience. But I would say that that's pretty strong indication that you are in the state akin to sleep or very close to it. So I would say that that's your imagination strengthening, or you're getting closer to where you ideally want to be for strongest impression, if that makes sense. Definitely keep going, because at first it may not feel like you have the ability to navigate or control it very well. It might feel like difficult to sort of direct your attention in that state akin to sleep, but it does get easier. It does get easier. Thank you for the super chat, John. And I'm so sorry if I missed that earlier. I didn't get a notification for that. Weird. What to do to interrupt thoughts of being clumsy? What to do to interrupt thoughts of being clumsy? Are you speaking about intrusive thoughts? Like, how do we interrupt intrusive thinking? And correct me if I'm wrong on that. Basically, with intrusive thoughts, yes, I know that they are incredibly frustrating. I know that they can even be scary sometimes. A lot of times we become fearful of them because we don't want them to manifest. We're scared that they're going to manifest. That's not necessarily the case. That's not inherently the case. And honestly, the best way to deal with intrusive thoughts, and I made a video about this too, but in short, the best way to deal with intrusive thoughts is not fighting them. Not fighting them. And I know that sounds kind of backwards. I know that may sound like not so sound advice, but if we're engaging with them, if we're continuing to engage with these intrusive thoughts, if we're basically trying to like push back against them or fight them in some, like we're really just giving more attention to them. We're really just kind of feeding into it, right? Like we're engaging with it, and that's not ideally what we want to do. What we'll find is that just even like the observation of them, yes, but not giving it your attention so much, not giving it not feeding into those thoughts or pushing back against them, they will dissipate. They will dissipate. I have a video coming out shortly about detachment exercises, things that we can do to help in the day-to-day alleviate some of these intrusive thoughts or how to better deal with them. So keep eyes out for that. But yeah, don't engage, don't fight. You can observe, you can even acknowledge, but then just let it run its course, let it do its thing. If I'm understanding, I hope I understood the question correctly. If I missed If I missed a point or something, let me know, John. Accept all your thoughts and it will set you free, period. Agreed, Alex. Agreed. Oh, Donna, thank you. Hi, Missy. I know I keep saying this, but I really want you to know your guided meditations are awesome and I really want more. Thanks for all you're doing. Thank you. That's really sweet. I'm glad they're helpful for you. I'm glad. And yes, I'm not done making meditations. Don't worry. I know it's been a while since I've released one. More are coming. Sorry, trying to find my spot, you guys. Bear with me. Hi, Missy. How to not focus on the 3D slash third party. Oh, I know. So I know that this is one of the biggest challenges that we come into on this journey, if not the biggest challenge, is dealing with the 3D and our interaction with it. Because, I mean, we're still having to interact with the 3D naturally. Um, that is one of the things that we're aiming to do here, and why I really try to emphasize the importance of observation and detachment is so that, and something like a focused attention meditation, something to help us basically exercise the mind and begin to get better at directing our attention, directing where we're keeping our focus, so that we're not so scattered and that we're not so at the mercy of our thoughts, and they want to go all over the place and they want to, take you to places that you may not necessarily want to go. I know it feels like the mind is a wild animal sometimes and we can't help but notice these things or become aware of things that are not ideal. And that's normal. That is completely normal. Um, Something like a mindfulness meditation daily is going to help you strengthen your ability to direct your attention, so that you're not going to be at the mercy of this intrusiveness that keeps bombarding you and keeps showing up for you and things of that. Um, Also remembering the first principle. If you find yourself triggered, if you find yourself feeling upset, if you find that you can't stop thinking about 3D circumstance and the third party and SP and all that, remember the first principle. Be still and know that I am God. The first part of that being the most important, and that is just be still. Come back to awareness, come back to remembering who you are. Those really will be, and just knowing that it does, as we become more acclimated to our imaginal acts and the imaginal world and going within, it's going to become easier to disengage from whatever 3D circumstances you may be encountering. I know it can feel frustrating right now, but continue to go within. Continue to practice that mindfulness meditation or focused attention. It does get easier. Hi, Missy. How do you manifest a specific person when we are not long split up and see each other as friends a few days every week? Good question. So how do we manifest a specific person if we're seeing them in the 3D a couple times a week? I mean, in the same way that we would manifest for a specific person, even if we were in no contact. Now, granted, it can feel more challenging when we are interacting with that person in the 3D, unless we are, incredibly trusting in the law, unless we have grown a considerably large degree of faith and trust in this, and our ability to not give our reactions and attention to 3D, I know it can feel challenging to do so. So I'm not going to say that you have to cut contact or that you should stop seeing your person in the 3D if that's not what you want to do. Though that is something that maybe if you find yourself being triggered often, uh, if you find difficulties maintaining that wish fulfilled state because of how they're showing up in 3D, it's something that you may want to consider, even if it's just for, a short interval of time to give yourself, build up more of that dominant state, build up more of that feeling of the wish fulfilled. Um, but if not, then I recommend practicing and getting familiar with revision. So that way, anytime something shows up in your 3D, anytime SP shows up in a way that's not ideal, if you find yourself getting triggered, if you find anything like that, revise it, revise the encounter, and every time, if that's what it takes. So yeah, that would be either, maybe give yourself a little bit of time if need be to really ground yourself and build up that conviction and strength and imagination, or revise any encounters in 3D that may not be ideal. Hello from Ireland. Hello. I cannot wait to go to Ireland. That's on the list. Hi, Missy. Is it normal after SATs to dream the opposite of your visualization? What is the reason for this? Thank you so much. Good question. So it's not uncommon. Once we start doing SATs, once we begin a SATs practice, it's not uncommon to notice that we have weird dreams immediately following. Like for it, the first couple of days is usually it does go away. Like those dreams do wind up changing or ceasing to be things that are not ideal, but it's not uncommon. It does happen. And it's not something I would panic about. I certainly wouldn't say anything like that. Dreams are really just feedback, like most other things, like the 3D circumstances, our reactions. It's another form of feedback, perhaps giving us a window or an opportunity to see into our subconscious, see something that we may not even be consciously aware of, right? Like if I have a fear, or if I have, things going on beneath the surface that I'm not consciously aware of, dreams can maybe clue me in on what might be going on there. Now, that said, even if the dreams are not great, even if they're not ideal, don't let it, get to you. Don't let it deter you, because those dreams will change, just like a change in you will occur through this practice. The more you continue to imagine that wish fulfilled state, the more that you continue to go to the end, the more that you continue to practice that, you're going to notice a shift in how you feel. You're going to notice a shift in how you react and respond in the day to day, and you're going to notice that the dreams change for the better. So yeah, do not let it do not let it upset you. Hi, Missy. Please don't ignore my question this time. Oh, can you talk about how to respond to those saying manifesting deliberately and God's state is narcissistic and just a symptom of mental illness? Uh, yeah, no, a lot to unpack there. I mean, number one, really quick, I'm never intentionally trying to ignore anyone. Just FYI. I try to get to as many questions as I can in order that I can. Sometimes I get lost. Sometimes things happen, and for that I do apologize. Like if you want to make 100% sure that your question does get answered, you can always send a super chat. But I'm never intentionally trying to like ignore anyone. Just throwing that out there. And as far as what to say to those what to say to those who talk about manifesting deliberately as narcissistic, I mean, I wouldn't. If it were me, I wouldn't even say anything. I would because engaging in that kind of back and forth with somebody who is going to be fixed in that belief. I mean, first off, there's not a God state for one, because God is not a state. God is literally everything, right? Um, but yeah, it could be if we have fears and questioning about all of this, we're likely seeing a reflection of that because everyone is us pushed out. So if we're seeing a lot of naysay comments, it's like everything, it's a reflection of our own fears and what we may be believing and assuming, or if we're not sure, if we're hesitant, it's going to be reflecting in other people saying these types of things. Um, to combat that, test the law. Test the law. Test it all the time. And this is something that we should be doing anyways. To really build your faith, we want to make sure that we are, number one, being keenly observant of the relationship between imagination and the 3D, right? We want to make sure that we are continuing to put this to the test and not just blindly believe anything that we read out there. I don't want anyone to just take my word for this, that this is true. Like, I want each and every one of you to really put this to the test and prove to yourself that conscious creation, that conscious manifestation is a thing, right? Um, it's certainly not anything narcissistic. It's something that we're always manifesting all the time anyways, whether we're aware of it or not. So yeah, um, don't let it get the best of you if you hear comments like that, and make sure that you are, if you do have any questions, if you do have any doubts or hesitancy on the validity of the law, then make sure that you are proving this to yourself, that this is in fact real, that you are in fact the operant power in your reality. Yeah. I don't talk to people about it because I don't want their negativity impacting me. Yeah, and that was part of the reason why Neville said, "Be silent. Tell no one. Go within and tell no man of what you are doing, what you are praying." Right, and that is because if we are in any way doubtful, if we do have hesitancy to have hesitancy if this is real or not, we may hear that from other people. We may hear them express our doubts and our fears. So, yeah, I personally wouldn't engage. Am I Neville reincarnated? Am I? That's the second week in a row that I got that question. That's interesting. Probably not, but thank you. Missy, I need to manifest a trip, but it has to be in April. Any tips for deadline manifestations? Thank you. Absolutely. So, and I have made a video talking about manifesting on a deadline. And if you haven't seen that video yet, I would go check it out. If you type in the search bar, Missy Renee, manifest on a deadline, that should pop right up. But basically, I mean, to be clear, yes, we can absolutely manifest. There's nothing we cannot do, but I don't usually recommend if we can help it. If we can absolutely help it, I don't always recommend trying to manifest on a deadline, unless you have a considerable degree of faith and trust. Because what can happen is, as the days get closer and closer to that deadline, we become more and more anxious, which can really throw things off. If you find that this is something that does need to happen by this deadline, and it feels like there's no changing that, to the best of your ability, as much and as often as possible, just really go in until you feel that certainty. Go to the end of already being on that trip. In this case, you are already at your destination, and imagine yourself enjoying it. Imagine yourself, if it's for pleasure, imagine doing something fun. If it's for business, imagine whatever it is, whatever that looks like. But I would be continuing to go to the end and really taking advantage of that drowsy state, going into meditation until it really begins to feel solidified, until it really begins to feel less and less like there's any room for doubt. Yeah. And for the love of everything, don't look at the calendar. Don't look at the calendar, because the more that we are observant of time, it can delay things, right? The less we are observant of time, the faster it tends to show up. Go figure. But yeah, but go check out the video that I made talking about that. Missy and I vaped at the same time. We are all connected. Indeed. Indeed. Oh, love and light to you too, Brienne. Thank you. Hi, Missy. Glad to hear from you. Are your personal recorded affirmations and listening to them nonstop as effective as saying them? Good question. It really is going to. So, as far as techniques go, as far as affirmation tapes, affirmations, any technique really, it's going to be different for everyone. Everyone's going to resonate with different things. Some people, for some people, affirmations, saying them in their own voice is going to be what really helps them to resonate and really helps them to connect to them. Some people have great success with affirmation tapes. So I would play around with both. I would play around with both, and note if there's resistance to one or the other. Note if you're having difficulty connecting to one or the other. And sort of there is a little bit of experimenting at first with different ways of imagining, different ways of going to the end, and just seeing what helps you what helps you the most and what feels best. Yeah. Hi, Missy. What is the best way to change assumptions about food without resistance? Good question. Um, so regardless of what it is, whatever we're trying to change the assumption of, that sort of is the point to everything that we're trying to do here. Everything that we're aiming to do is change the assumption, is change the self, right? This is all boiling down to no one to change but self. So the whole purpose behind imagination, imaginal acts, going to the end, is to get us to a place where we're no longer associating with those old assumptions and those old beliefs, right? So in this case, it is whatever way of imagining, whatever techniques or exercises or ways to help you suspend disbelief and allow you to go to that end where um, there's a change in how you feel about food and your relationship with food, right? So if that's affirmations, if that's sats, if that's internal dialogue where you're hearing that conversation with you telling loved ones and family members about how this has changed for you, whatever that looks like. But um, really, this all boils down to us changing our assumptions, and we do that through our creative power, imagination. So I'd find if you're having some difficulty or if you're not noticing any change in those assumptions, any change in that state of consciousness, maybe play around with other ways of imagining. If visualizing has been tricky for you, you see if affirmations are more of your thing and vice versa. But yeah, this all comes down to the change in self. Oh my goodness, thank you, Tam. Thank you for the super chat. And I also did not receive a notification for that one. I am so sorry. Trying to see if you have a question attached to it. Okay. Hi, Missy. How to deal with the anxiety if the manifestation will come or not? Good question. And I made a video covering this, one of my more recent videos, and for the life of me, I don't remember the title, unfortunately. But um, so how do we deal with the anxiety, the fear of failure, or the fear of whether or not it's going to happen? Uh, do check out the last couple videos that I did make. I believe it was not the last one, but the one before that, where I talked about the fear of failure. Um, Basically, what we want to be doing, alongside, of course, the aim of what we're here for. Like, we're here because we want to make a change to the 3D. We want to manifest a change in our world. So, of course, we want to be really focused on living in the end. But what we also want to make sure that we're doing is building our trust and faith in the law, because that really is going to be the thing that alleviates and ultimately gets rid of that anxiety of if it's going to happen or not. That's stemming from doubt. That's stemming from maybe not disbelief of the law, but not full conviction either, right? Because if there was full conviction in the law, if you knew without question, if you were 100,000% certain that the law is real and that this works, there would not be a question on if it's going to happen or not, right? So I would be putting this to the test. I would be playing with this and observing the relationship between imagination and your 3D world, your assumptions in the 3D world, and really making sure that you start to see the relationship and the connection, and that what we are imagining and assuming is what becomes outpictured out here. Because without that trust, it's going to feel very difficult to live in that end and not be double-minded. So on top of whatever you are imagining for, whatever whatever it is that you desire to see change, make sure that you're not overlooking the importance of testing this so that we can buy that pearl of great price. Yeah. Thank you again for the super chat. Oh my goodness. 2 more. Thank you, guys. Thank you for the super chat. I think, Ashley, you were first. Hi, Missy. I hope it's not too late. I notice I get distinct helpful phrases that pop in my head, or techniques, things to visualize or affirm. Is this something you have experienced? Inspired action? Missy, I hope so. Get distinct helpful phrases that pop in my head, or techniques. Oh, yes, yes. No, good question. Sorry, it just took me a minute. Um, yeah, that is a form of inspired action, absolutely. You mean you'll have something pop in your mind that you'll know what to say or, what to imagine that will help you to feel more into that state of the wish fulfilled? Yeah, yeah, absolutely, that's part of or, one instance or example of inspired action. Like, you'll have a thought about something and it's sort of you follow that thought. Inspired action is completely just it's almost like you're being guided, right? It's almost like you're not even consciously aware that you're on this bridge or that these things are coming to you to help you, but absolutely that's the case. Yeah. Yeah. And go with the flow of it. And thank you, Cindy, for the super chat. I'm just trying to see if you had a question attached or if you have one back here. One second, guys. Hmm. My apologies, Cindy. I don't see a question if you had one. So, if you did, if you don't mind typing it out again, I'll be keeping sharp eyes out for that. But thank you again for that super chat. Appreciate you. And thank you, Oscar. Much appreciated, you guys. Hi, Missy. I think I need help after making some good progress I think I'm having. I keep waking up anxious and concerned with my deadlines I have. I want to be at ease knowing I already set my fulfillment. So waking up anxious and concerned with deadlines, yeah, yeah. And I know and this is why earlier somebody asked a question about manifesting on a deadline. And this is where it can be challenging. It can feel very challenging with things coming up and you can see the clock and the calendar get inching ever closer. Um, yeah, really and truly, number one, make sure that you are not overlooking the importance of building your faith. Make sure you're not overlooking the importance of building your faith because we want to get to a point where we can be at ease. We can set the intention and just go about our day knowing full well that if I've planted the seed, if I have left this impression, if I have accepted this to be true, then it must materialize. It has to. It has to, right? So if we're not to that place yet, then we want to continue to observe and be more and more aware of how the law is always working. I mean, for the good things and the bad things and everything in between, it's always working, right? The second thing I would recommend is if you're waking up with those feelings of anxiousness, then that indicates to me that you may be falling asleep in a more anxious state, right? It's almost a cue for us. Like, however we're waking up in the morning is a lot of times indicative of what we fell asleep in, what state we fell asleep in the night before. So, you know, I know that it can feel difficult by the end of the day. We're exhausted. And usually a lot of times we'll fall asleep as soon as our head hits the pillow. But, do try to allow yourself to relax into that state of the wish fulfilled before bed. As much and as often as you can to the best of your ability and without effort, without trying to force it. Be very clear on that. But just really play around with this idea of the wish fulfilled, especially before bed, if that might be getting overlooked. But yeah, I know it's such a crap place to be when you feel anxious, but it comes back to faith. It comes back to faith. And if you have to remind yourself, then remind yourself. This is already finished because I've said so. All right, going back up. Hello from the south of Italy. Hello. Good evening to you. Thank you for being here. Is it better to manifest a version of your SP with a whole lot of changes or just manifest a new person with these qualities? Good question. And honestly, that's going to be a personal preference. That is going to be entirely up to you. Everyone's going to be different because either of those are options for you. Either of those are states of consciousness that you can occupy and that you can experience. Um, I guess I would maybe take a bit to meditate and see which one feels right for you, like what path you want to go down when it comes to manifesting love. If it's your SP, the different version, different qualities in that person, or if it's new love entirely. But I would get, as clear as possible on that first so that we're not experiencing double mindedness, kind of going back and forth because we're not sure what to decide. But yeah, at the end of the day, this is your reality. You can have anything you want within it. Oh, thought I dropped something. Oh, Sarah. Thank you so much for the super chat. Meow Mix is working really hard back there. Please treat the animals to a little something. Thanks. Uh, oh, absolutely. And these critters are so spoiled. Don't let them fool you. They're so spoiled. Thank you. He is cute and he knows it. All right, going back to my spot. Hi, Missy. You mentioned going all in your inconsistency video. Could you please elaborate on it more by the means of going all in? Do you mean fully trust your imagination? Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Going all in is essentially buying the pearl of great price. Something that Neville had spoke to, and it's referenced in the Bible, and that is selling all of the old beliefs, selling all of the old conditioning. We have to sell it. So great is this pearl of great price that the only way we can buy it is if we sell off everything else. Basically, we have to go all in with the faith and trust that imagination is what creates reality. What you believe and assume is what becomes your real lived experience, your 3D experience, right? Yeah, that is exactly what that means. And I know it can feel easier said than done sometimes, naturally. But the reason that we are inconsistent in this practice is the same reason that we see inconsistency in the 3D, and that's because of our double mindedness, going back and forth and back and forth. And it wasn't until I deliberately decided, I gave myself the choice of going all in or walking away entirely. Like, I gave myself that ultimatum. And I truly do believe that because I had the choice, because it didn't feel like I was trying to force myself to believe something, giving myself that choice did help it. It just made it more, it made it easier to go in on that trust. I don't know. That's just something that I noted. Once I gave myself the decision and I made the choice to do so, it flowed. It flowed ever since. So I gave up on manifestation and said to the universe, I'm releasing my SP, and then I moved on. When I decided to do this, my SP got back in touch and I fell in love all over again. What now? Yeah, yeah. This is something that often happens. Um, Essentially, what happened there was you detached from, well, trying to manifest and trying to, through conscious effort and force, make something happen. You surrendered, you released all that. And when that happens, that's when things unfold for us, right? As far as what to do now, that is entirely up to you. Entirely up to you. But if anything, I hope that this maybe gave you a boost to your faith or gave you a boost to trust in the law. So that way, if you coming back into this, if you decided that you going forward want to stay with your person and you want to maintain that loving and lasting relationship, then make sure that we're doing this in a way that is not through trying to manifest. And I've made a couple of videos. I probably will make more because this is one of the most important things to understand. Like, changes happen when we're not trying to like burst a blood vessel to make it so. Now, that's not to say that we have to give up in order for it to manifest. Not at all. Um, that's only one form of detachment, and it's not the best way to do it, in my opinion. But um, if nothing else, I hope this has increased your trust. And whatever you decide to do going forward is entirely up to you. But coming back to remembering that the change is all taking place within us. It's never that we are changing the outside. We are changing first in here. Always. I hope that makes sense. Thank you for the super chat. If there is a third party, would affirming that third party has moved on to another person be keeping them in the 3D, or does that help the third party to move on? Good question. Honestly, the best advice I can give about third parties is, as much and to the best of our ability, don't give attention to them. Don't give the focus to them. Don't give awareness to them. Don't give it any oxygen. Starve the thought or idea off entirely. Now, I know that, of course, that could be easier said than done sometimes. I know sometimes we can't help those thoughts that pop into our mind, but the less attention that we are giving, the less we are reacting to this third party circumstance, the better, right? If it feels like you're being bombarded by intrusive thoughts about a third party, in that case, if it helps you to feel more relaxed to affirm that they've moved on, that they're not in the picture anymore, if that helps to bring you to a place of calm, then do so. Then do so. But as much as you can, as much as you are able, practice taking your direction and attention away from third party. This is also where something like mindfulness meditation and focused meditation is really going to benefit us. So we're not constantly battling our own mind. Yeah. Oh, I love you too, Yara. Hello, Missy. Is it enough to do nothing but only give trust to the universe for big manifestations? Whenever a bad thought comes up, reminding yourself that the universe is higher than circumstance. Yes. Yes. Probably one of the most challenging things for us is doing nothing. The idea of doing nothing. It sounds completely counterintuitive. It sounds completely backwards, because the way that we're conditioned is that we have to do something to get something. We have to do something to make a change in something. We have to do, take action and do. Here, all that we're doing consciously is selecting the state. After that, it's in God's hands. And that's when we remind ourselves, yes, it is a surrendering, it is a trusting that God, the universe, consciousness, whatever you want to call it, higher self, that's the one pulling the strings here. That's the one doing the heavy lifting, not the ego self, not the conscious thinking self. No, that's not the one doing the work. So yes, reminding ourselves that I and my Father are one, but the Father is greater than I. And that's what I would personally affirm or remind myself in times where I started to feel twitchy and anxious about something. Whenever I had the urge to do more, I would just remind myself, I and my Father are one, but the Father is greater than I. See if that helps. Thank you for the super chat, Imagine. Thank you. Let me see. Trying to see if you had a question. So I don't see one attached, so I'm just 1 second, guys. I don't see a question anywhere, Imagine. I don't know if you had one or not, but I'll be keeping eyes out for that. And thank you again for the super chat. And thank you, Vancouver. Thank you, Vancouver Vixen. I love the name. I grew up in Seattle, so I was in Vancouver all the time. Love that city. Hi, Missy. Can you discuss how revision affects others involved in the situation? E.g., mom hurt all three sisters. Will all three of us be impacted by my revision of the situation? New to the concept. Thank you. Good question. And yes, yes. If you revise a circumstance with someone else, even when there's multiple people, it will affect not just you, but the other people involved. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because essentially with revision, you're selecting a new state from the past or what you experienced, right? Because memories are just imaginal acts. That's it. Memories are imaginal acts, nothing more, nothing less. So when we are able to change that memory, we're going to see reflecting forward that people are responding and reflective of that change that we've made. Absolutely. And I've made a few videos talking about revision. If you haven't seen those yet, if you just go to the search bar, type in Missy Renee revision, those should pop right up. But I would definitely dive into those videos because revision is a game changer. It's a game changer. I'm telling y'all. When the super chats are empty, it usually means that the sender wrote more than the number of allowed characters. Good to know. I didn't know that. Good to know. Because yeah, I am trying to keep eyes out in case they had to retype the question, but yeah, noted. Thank you for the super, Kelly. Hi, long time no see. So happy to see you again. In the beginning of your journey, what did you manifest to test the law, and how many times did you test before you went all in? Good question. And I did make a video. I think it was my first success story video I made was talking about my personal successes that I had. It was one of my older videos, but if you haven't seen it, it should be the very first like success story video that I had. And what did I manifest to test the law? So starting out was mostly smaller things, insignificant things, right? I think an old friend reaches out to me. There was a blue butterfly. Crap, I don't remember what else. I had a list of like 5 or 10 things, and within that first week, everything showed up on that list. Everything showed up. And not only did I see a butterfly, but I actually had a blue butterfly land on my hand and let me hold it. which had never happened before. It was wild. And I had that week not just one person reach out to me that I hadn't talked to in a while, like an old friend, but like 2 or 3 people that same week. It was wild. Of course, the ladder exercise, the ladder experiment I did, that was wild. Um, one of the first bigger ones was manifested a free trip to Hawaii. Definitely check out that video. Definitely check out that video. Um, and how many times did you test it before you went all in? I tested it quite a few times. Quite a few times. I was very stubborn. I had a very strong left brain analytical mind. So it was not easy at first to fully go in and buy that pearl, admittedly. Yeah. But you can only chalk something up to coincidence so many times until it is literally not a coincidence anymore. Like something can only be coincidence a couple of times and then it's a pattern, right? You cannot keep saying that, oh, this is all just coincidence. There's no way. There's no way. Thank you for the super chat, Ava. Hi, Missy. With SATs, I go to sleep quickly. I'll remember a couple minutes of visualizing, then we'll go straight to sleep. Is that enough to be effective? Yeah. Yeah. We don't need to be in SATs for very long. It doesn't need to be like 30 minutes or an hour. No. A few minutes is more than enough. More than enough time. And the most important thing being the feeling that you are going to sleep in, right? It's ultimately the feeling that we're after. So as long as it's invoked that feeling and you can fall asleep in that wish fulfilled state, you're golden. You're golden. Yeah. Missy, can you talk about why doing less doesn't mean that it's going to take longer? I'm trying a more relaxed approach while manifesting as feedback and only doing techniques when I feel like it. Yes. Good. Yeah. Yeah. In this case, doing less can absolutely mean it shows up faster, that things happen faster. Um, because this really isn't about doing something to get something. I know that's what we ultimately want, but this is the art of being. This is the art of becoming the person who already has what we desire, right? So it's not the techniques themselves that is going to manifest this change in your world. The techniques are tools, they're vessels that we can use to aid us, but ultimately like it's not going to be like however many times you do a technique is how fast it'll show up. That's not how this works. In fact, that does usually go against our best efforts because this should not be something that is a lot of work. It shouldn't feel like work. If it feels like work, we're putting in way too much conscious effort. So yeah, taking a more relaxed approach is 1000% recommended. Period. Point blank. Don't ever try to force yourself to do techniques because you're scared that if you don't do it, it's not going to happen. That's not how this works. That's not how this works, I promise. And really what that boils down to is the law of reversed effort. That the conscious mind and subconscious mind, when they're in conflict or at odds, subconscious mind is going to win. So trying to beat the subconscious mind into submission is not an effective approach. Being more relaxed, going with the flow, suggestive is 100% a better approach. Yeah, hands down. Thank you, trillionaire man. You're sweet. Sorry, I was trying to go back up. Does the bridge of incidents also get involved with revising? Yeah. Yeah, well, there will be a bridge with revision. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, revising is absolutely going to have an impact on our future. 100%. Because more often than a lot of us realize, we're going off of the past to sort of gauge or determine what's gonna happen in the future, and we're doing that way more than we realize. I actually have a video about that coming out tomorrow, about how we tend to go off of past events. We form these theories, these beliefs and assumptions based on past events, past experience to sort of determine what's gonna happen in the future. So yeah, you're gonna see a bridge unfold if through revision. Absolutely. Oh, thank you, Camilla. I'm quite new to manifestation. I've watched many creators, and your Manifestation 101 playlist was the first that really helped me understand. And your energy is so calming and safe. Thank you. You are so sweet. I'm glad. I'm glad. Thank you. Happy to help. That is why I am here. Missy, uh, how come sometimes manifesting something so small never hardens into fact? So, good question. I take it that you're referring to like testing the law with small things, and correct me if I'm wrong on that. Um, where that can get us in trouble is if we are looking for these manifestations. Um, they show up when we're not looking for it, when we're not expecting it. But if we're constantly bringing into awareness, where is it? Why is it not here yet? Why hasn't it happened? What are we bringing into consciousness? What are we aware of being? I don't have it. I don't see it. It's not here, which is going to reflect more of that evasiveness, right? So we really want to make sure that if we are testing the law through small things, manifesting small things, that we set it and forget it. We set it and forget it. Drop it, just go about your day. Go about your days because we don't know. We do not know when these will unfold and materialize for us. But it's not going to be if we're noticing the absence of it all over the place, right? So yeah, we want to be mindful of that because though we may not have attachment to these small items, smaller manifestations, we likely do have some attachment to the concept of manifestation, the idea of manifestation. So yeah, we want to be mindful of that. Misty, do you have a SATs module or a class? Good question. So I do have a masterclass, Master Your Imagination masterclass, which goes into SATs, it goes into lucid dreaming, liminal dreaming, it goes into just the exercising of imagination, strengthening that imaginal faculty, so to speak. You can check out information in the description box below. Thank you for the super chat, Imagine. Does the revision need to be done in order of events? Forced SP marriage, failed attempts of divorce, break up with me, manifest as divorce. Am I contradicting? Oh, does revision need to be done in order of events? No. Mm-mm. Not necessarily. I mean, if it feels easier or come more naturally to do it that way, you certainly can, but it doesn't need to be. Linear time is not a real thing. It's a construct. It's literally something we've made up. But if it feels more helpful to go back to the first incident or instance and revise that, then I would do so. Like, what maybe set things off, so to speak, if it's maybe something started a chain reaction, start at the thing that maybe started off that chain reaction and revise that. Yeah. I know detaching from desire is important in manifesting, but can you truly detach and still be attached? So it's not that we're detaching from the desire in the sense of like giving up. That's not what detachment means. It doesn't mean give up and find something else or you know, go look for something else. It's not that. Um, we do want to detach from the sense of desire because to desire something is indication that we don't have it. If we desire or want this thing, it's because we don't have it, right? But we're really talking about detachment from the old state of consciousness where there was an old story, our old fears, our doubts, insecurities, right? Whatever may have created the unwanted situation to begin with, that is what we are detaching from. Not that we have to move on and find someone else or anything like that. So you're detaching from any state that was unwanted, that was undesirable, and attaching instead to the wish fulfilled state, right? So you are detaching from one old state and attaching to a new one instead. I hope that makes sense. Oh, Cindy, you did send a message. I'm so sorry if I missed that one earlier. Hi, any tips for using the law to deal with depression and anxiety, please, when you've tried all the recommended things like therapy and meds? Good question. And I made a video talking about manifesting with depression and anxiety, how to overcome anxiety and depression while manifesting. If you type on the search bar, that video should pop up. But if we are anxious, if we are notably anxious, we want to first help ourselves to the best of our ability, get us into a relaxed state first, right? So my one of my biggest tips is breath work, breathing exercises. And this is where introducing a meditation practice is going to be so beneficial in so many ways. It may take a little bit of getting used to. I know at first meditation may not come, the easiest thing in the world, but we want to first get ourselves as relaxed as possible, like before going to the end, before going to the state that we desire to be in. Because if we're very anxious and uptight first, it's going to feel very, very challenging to imagine something lovely or feel something lovely. We're going to notice a lot of resistance to it. So, first focusing on the breath, using that because we'll get a physiological response. Deep, slow, rhythmic breathing is going to help shut off or quiet the fight or flight. It's going to alleviate the release of stress hormone and adrenaline so that you can begin to relax. But getting into a practice with breath work and meditation is going to be a game changer for what you described. And check out the video that I made too. Yeah. To what extent can you recreate an SP? Is it possible to change their sexual preferences, etc.? You can change them in any way. You can recreate your person in any way. And the reason we know this is because creation is finished. If all of creation is finished, that means that in all of the infinite states of consciousness or realities that we can experience, that every version of every person already exists. So if we can imagine it, we can experience that state. Absolutely. And that's why we say don't regard the circumstances. Don't take the circumstances at hand and use that as a way to bar yourself from going all in to the imaginal acts. Just every version of every person already exists. Yeah. You guys are so sweet. Thank you. What if you're nervous and have doubt about being with your SP? Good question. And I think a lot of us have this, at some points in this journey, especially if we're just getting started, just getting familiar with the law. This isn't uncommon. What we want to, with our reactions, what we are observing, what we're noting, we want to use that as feedback because that's going to be the gauge that tells you what state you're occupying, right? At least in that moment, because we're always moving in and out of states. But if you're noticing feelings of fear or anxiousness around your SP, then it's feedback in that moment that we're not in the state that we want to be in, right? We're not in the state of the wish fulfilled. So instead, we want to move ourselves into that state of the wish fulfilled. So first, helping yourself to relax as much as possible, get it into a rhythmic, nice state, a relaxed state, and then go to the end in imagination. Yeah. And you're going to notice with practice that you'll be spending less and less time in an anxious state. That will inevitably cease to be the case. All right, going back up. Please give a cuddle to your kitty. Aw. Oh, I will. I will. I'm going to cuddle the shit out of that cat later. Good questions today. Yeah. Lately, I haven't wanted to do my visualizations. When I try to do sets, I find my mind bored, disinterested. It's almost like my mind is turning away from the visualization. Thoughts? Good question. Um, so if you're noticing that you don't have a desire anymore to visualize, uh, could be indication that you're in the Sabbath. One of the things that we know when we are in the state of the Sabbath, we're not going to have any desire to do techniques. We're not going to feel the need to do any techniques. It's going to feel redundant. It's going to feel pointless because it's already done, right? Like, there's no more work to do because it's already done for us. So if you find that you're becoming disinterested or you're just not feeling it anymore, that could be the case. the Sabbath also comes with that feeling of completion. So if that's there as well, then more than likely you're in the Sabbath. Um, if maybe not, then you can try switching up the technique or switching up the scene. Perhaps the mind wants something new. If you've been imagining the same thing over and over again, maybe it's just time to switch it up and see if that helps. Do you think you might have written off the law as fake if your initial testing seemed not to be mirrored at all? Good question. Would I have written off the law if testing it didn't work? Well, so when I found Neville, I was already in sort of a jaded place. Like the idea of manifestation was starting to get so tiring because I had been studying manifestation and namely the law of attraction for years before I found Neville. Years and years, and I never saw consistent results. It was very mixed bag at best. So there was a part of me that was already sort of disengaged and sort of detached, to be honest. I sort of, when I went to go test things, I just would write them out, take a moment, and then dismiss them and genuinely forgot about them. Didn't give them a second thought. So if you're noting that things are not showing up for you, really instead start to observe your mental diet. Are you continuing to bring up into awareness that this is not working, that nothing is showing up for you? Is that continuing to be a state you occupy? Right? And if testing it with small things isn't working, then instead I would just purely switch to self-observation. And this is something that we all should be doing regardless. Because if the law is true, if the law in its most simple terms is what you imagine, what you assume, what you believe to be true will be true for you. If that is the case, then we should be able to note the connection, the relationship between what we are imagining and what we are experiencing out here. So we should begin to see it without trying to manifest anything, right? And the more that we observe, we're going to notice more and more that this is a connection that is real. We're going to see more and more that what we imagine becomes expressed. So see if that may take a bit more pressure off and come more naturally for you. Yeah. Thank you for the super chat. Imagine sometimes while visualization, my wish fulfilled, I cry, and sometimes nothing, and sometimes nothing happens, but I continue the story. Does this mean I am doing it wrong? Um, well, not necessarily. Sometimes when you visualize, sometimes when you visualize, you become emotional and start crying, and sometimes nothing happens. I mean, it's normal. With SATs, it truly does take some practice. It's it's going to be something that takes practice. Especially since this is something that most of us are not used to doing. So just like with learning any new skill, it's going to take some getting used to and getting the hang of it, so to speak. Just like with everything. When we learned how to ride a bike, when we learned how to drive a car, it's practice. And you're going to become more familiar with what is most natural for you. You're going to learn to like relax and go with the flow more. You're just going to become more familiar with the hypnagogic state, and it's going to come with less effort. Usually, if we're not noting anything, if we're not feeling anything, and I'm not talking about emotion, but if it feels like a struggle or a strain, it's because we're still too alert, we're too awake, and we're putting in too much effort. So keyword here is relax first. Make sure that we are good and relaxed. And yes, you may fall asleep quickly at first. That's probably going to happen. Don't let it deter you. Don't let it sway you. You guys are the best. Thank you for the advice. I will come back with a success story. Awesome. Awesome. Congratulations. Looking forward. Thoughts about Florence Scovel Shinn. She said, I will not speak for AB to be your husband because it's violation of spiritual law. I will speak for the man that is yours by divine right to find you now. Yeah, I there's a lot of things that I love about Florence. Don't get me wrong. Like, there are so many nuggets of wisdom that you can glean from reading her books. This is one area that I strongly disagree. She was very much, uh, behind the idea of free will, not impeding on somebody's free will, and yada yada yada. So naturally, she was not keen on the idea of manifesting a specific person. So with that, I obviously disagree. Naturally, that's where sometimes with these spiritual teachers, we have to keep in mind that they're still maybe looking through a human lens, through a human ego lens with some things, right? I mean, that said, I don't dismiss her because there's a lot of amazing things that you can learn from her insight. And she was, yeah, she was incredible for her time. I mean, she was writing about this back in the 19th century, so well before Neville. Hi, Missy. What does it mean if I've been manifesting my SPs so calmly, but all of a sudden I started strongly missing them for 2 days? There were some small movements. Good question. I mean, could be ego backlash from the sound of it. Um, Two indications of ego backlash is it seemingly comes out of nowhere, right? Like nothing happened in particular to set us off or trigger us, and it typically comes after we've had a period of growth or a seemingly made progress. I made a video about ego backlash a few videos back that you should check out and see if any of the things that I talk about in the video are what is resonating with you right now. But rest assured, even if this is the case, even if you may have temporarily fallen out of the state of the wish fulfilled, that's okay. That's okay. Because ultimately, you can get yourself back there, right? Like it's never the case that once we've fallen out of that state that it's over, that we screwed it up, or we have to start from like no, none of that. We can move back. A lot of times we might get the idea that this journey is like continuous growth and evolving, like going up in a straight line, but it's more like this. We're more like there's dips and sometimes that we may have setbacks. That is normal. That is the ego doing its job, basically. But check out the video that I made about it. What did Neville mean by this man or no man? Did he mean not to be obsessed about your SP? Yes, basically. So you're referring to in a lecture, well, a Q&A that he was doing. He talked about you don't want it's not this man or no man. You just want to be married. What he was some people take that to mean that he was against the idea of manifesting a specific person. He wasn't. Basically, he was referring to do not let yourself become obsessive, right? Because this is not about getting that thing. This is about being married, right? This is all about becoming. So that was his way of trying to reinforce the idea of no one to change but self. Yeah. And I saw the next question there. Why did Neville Goddard not want us to manifest a specific person, instead emphasize on the feeling of being married? Well, again, it's not that he didn't want us to, because Neville Goddard manifested his second wife. Like he manifested a specific person. He was never, and he had his, some of his followers had testimonials on manifesting a specific person. So he was not anti-SP at all. What he was trying to help people do was stop trying to give all your focus and attention to the outside. Because, he saw, like a lot of us experience today, that we can get into places that feel desperate or maybe even obsessive. I know I certainly was. But that's continuing to feed the state of lack, the state of not having. I don't have this person. I long for this. And because I'm longing, and that means I don't have it, right? But if you focus instead on being married, being the person that is married, like being the person that you desire to be, that's the change within us. That is focusing on the change within us. That is changing the self. And because God gave you this desire, and if it is someone who's specific, then we trust in God that we wouldn't have this desire if it was not because we are meant to have this experience, right? Yeah. The idea that Neville was against the idea of manifesting a specific person, not true. Not true. What to do if I'm afraid of my manifestation coming true? I do want it, but a part of me is scared that I'll actually get it. I would reflect on why that is. I would what is the fear? Where is that fear stemming from? If this is a desire, why would you be afraid of it? Use that as an opportunity to do introspection. See what is maybe going on there underneath the conscious surface. Is it because there's a fear that you're going to lose it again? Is it a fear that it's not going to work out the way you wanted it to? Is it a fear that you don't know if you truly want this thing or if it's something else you want? Like, I would get clear on that first. Yeah. Kelly. Missy, I don't know if reincarnation is real, but if it is, I am absolutely coming back as one of your cats. They have the good life. They have the good life. That's for sure. They are pampered princesses, that's for sure. Are you married to your SP? I am. Da, 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 da. Hello from Australia. Hello. Happy Monday to you. Sorry, guys, trying to find my spot. Been bouncing all over the place. Hi, Missy. How can we go to the end if we have friends with benefits and we don't like how they show up in our life? Good question. So, first thing that we want to do is get very clear on what it is we do want. So, defining your aim is what Neville called it. Is it a loving, committed relationship that you ultimately desire? You know, if that's whatever the case might be, first get clear on that. How you want them to show up. What are the traits and qualities that you do want them to express and what you do want to see in them, right? And then you create an imagination, scenes or scenarios that would imply that they are now showing up in this manner, right? That you are now experiencing being with this person as their partner, as their spouse, you know, whatever that looks like for you. But first, yeah, getting clear on what it is that we want. I had a similar situation with my SP that you had with yours, just trying to focus on him forgiving me for the arguments. Oh, Sage, big hugs. I know. Oh, God, it sucks. Yeah. Focus on revision. Focus on forgiveness. Seeing him as forgiving and loving you unconditionally. Yeah. Last thing, Missy, I have been doing sats to fall asleep in the wish fulfilled, but I do think I'm falling asleep in the wish fulfilled. If anything, I have this. I don't have to do much since it's done. Yes. Yes. There we go. There we go. Yeah. Yeah. You'll know that you're doing it right based on how you feel, based on your reactions, predominantly. The dominant reactions that you note. So if it's feeling like there's nothing left to do here, it's done. That's yeah, that's the Sabbath. Any help for when manifestation keeps starting and stopping? It appears it's happening, then stops for weeks or months at a time. Ugh. Yeah, no, that's frustrating. If we're noticing sort of inconsistent patterns or like partial manifestations or movement and then no movement, that's indication of double-mindedness within us, right? It's kind of like our own hot and cold behavior internally, and we see it expressed externally. So it could be that, you know, once we start to see movement in 3D, we'll naturally get excited and we start paying more attention to it instead of going to the end, right? And which is why I really, really try to emphasize the importance of going into this practice with the express purpose of making this a lifestyle, not just to get the thing that we want, though that is important. It's so much bigger than that desire, whatever it might be. This is learning to exercise that imagination muscle, building our trust and faith in the law so that we are no longer double minded, right? So I know it's easy to get excited and start to focus more on the 3D if we start to see movement, but we want to be aware and mindful of this when it happens, reminding ourselves that go back within, go back within imagination. 'Cause the more attention that we're giving to 3D, it's easier for us to kind of slip back into old patterns, old thinking patterns, old fears, old doubts, and stuff like that. Yeah. Honestly, I have no questions, but I am just not consistent on imagining and feeling. Yeah, that's normal. That's normal. We might be very inconsistent at first. That's that's normal. Uh-oh, he's awake. Oh no. um, I mean, of course, the aim is to get ourselves more consistent. Like, so what I would recommend is if it feels like you're feeling overwhelmed, like there's too much to do. Oh, hi. Hi. Okay. Okay. We're just gonna. Sorry, but sorry. If it feels like there's too much that we're doing, maybe break it down so that it feels more manageable, right? So instead of saying like, right, I gotta do all these affirmations, and oh my god, Kitty, I love you, bud. I love you. Gotta love him. But no, like give yourself something that feels more manageable, right? Like, okay, I'm just gonna at nighttime before bed, I'm just gonna allow myself to get into a sleepy feel good state. And I'm not gonna try to pressure myself to do a bunch of things. Because if we're maybe being overzealous with like, I'm gonna do all these things, all these affirmations, all this stuff, it can get us feeling overwhelmed, right? But just so start with something that feels manageable, something that we're like, okay, this feels good. I don't have any qualms about this practice, just doing this one thing, even if it's just this one thing, even if it's just 10 minutes a day of meditation to start. But something that we can begin to build on that consistency. Yeah. And it does get easier. Orange cat life. He's a trip. He's a trip. He's an orange cat through and through. Can you do a makeup tutorial? Yes. I keep forgetting. I keep forgetting about that. Yes. Yes. Damn it. I need to make a note and not forget. I've had quite a few requests for that. I get busy and I forget. My apologies. Oh, hey, I got to you a bit late, but how are you? Missy, I've been trying to manifest my SP and found out yesterday he's with someone. I'm broken, distraught, and everything. What do you advise? Any specific video? Number one, revision. Number one, revising. Anything, especially receiving news of that kind. Because I know how absolutely devastating it can feel. So first and foremost, revision. Any of my revision videos, if you're not familiar with the technique, if you're not, if you have questions about it, I've made a few videos, so that should give you more than enough information to get started. But Really, really, really right now, emphasis on scratch that. No, don't accept that. Don't accept that state. Don't do it. What if I'm manifesting an SP for 3 months and haven't seen any movement, even negative? I was partially living in the end, but my general assumptions are good. A week ago, I only noticed he didn't change. Good question. So, I mean, number one, I know that this is easier said than done, but this is not about giving our attention to movement in 3D. This is only about changing ourself, noting the change in self. So when we say partially living in the end, I mean, I don't know exactly what that means, but where are you dwelling more often than not? What are the natural thoughts and assumptions that come up for you in regards to your SP? Are there feelings of anger or resentment or sadness or, you know, he's never going to change, he doesn't like me? Is there anything like that going on? Right? Um Again, I know one of the hardest things for us to do is not give our attention to 3D, but the only gauge that we want to be mindful of is the internal one. Because if the 3D is a mirror, right? We all heard, like we've all heard it 1,000 times, the 3D is a mirror. It's a mirror. How is that mirror going to reflect if we have not changed? It won't. So if we still have these beliefs, assumptions, conditions, if we're noticing these patterns, how can we expect to see a reflection in that mirror change? Right? So that's why I really, 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 and I'm going to keep pushing this. The only change that we're gauging is the change of self. Because it's once we change, that mirror is going to change. I hope that makes sense. Does having a good memory work against us when revising? Uh, I mean, regardless, you can revise. It doesn't matter. Even if it feels like you have a good memory you can always revise to the point of either forgetting that old memory or getting yourself to a point where that new memory feels more real to you. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Thank you for the super chat, Nico. I was told my revision with SP didn't work was because I am the version of myself that things don't work out for me. How do I revise so things work out for me in SP? Good question. So the reason that your revision didn't work, well, so is that still the belief that you have? Is that still a dominant assumption that things don't ever work out for you? Is that what you resonate with? Because if that is still something that you are identifying with, then yeah, we would want to change that assumption naturally. So what would it be like if everything did work out for you? What would be some things that you can imagine? What would be some experiences that you could have that would show you that everything works out for you? Start to play around with the concept, start to play around with the idea. And I know at first it might seem kind of weird because we don't usually give these things a whole lot of thought. But really use the imagination to go into that reality, go into that world where things are always working out in your favor. And experience what that would be like. Yeah. But when it comes to revision specifically, we want to continue to revise until that new memory is what is naturally coming up for us, until we are resonating with that new memory, right? So when we think about it, it should be the new memory, the revised memory that comes up for us first, and that's what we should be identifying with. If we're still identifying with that old memory, if that's still feeling more real to us, we want to keep revising it. Yeah. Pet the kitty. Oh, he's all the way over there now. All right, I got time for maybe one or two more. I'm going a little bit later, uh, just because we got off to a late start today, but what's the difference about Neville and Florence? Good question. So they are both very similar. Obviously, both well versed in mysticism, sort of the new thought, new science. They're both teaching very similar things. I'd say the biggest difference would be some of the things that Florence talked about or taught was the free will aspect. You know, not imposing on others' free will. I don't recall if she was into the idea of infinite states, like creation being finished. And forgive me, maybe she did mention that, not 100%. But one of the biggest differences that stuck out was that she was more very much like manifest a new love, you know, don't impede on others' free will. But overall, they were very similar in what they taught. Thank you for the super chat, John. Is it okay when manifesting to know/feel that something is going to happen? For me, it's too unbelievable to think, yay, she's with me now. Understandable. And to be clear, we're not trying to lie to ourselves. We can't lie to ourselves, obviously. Um, so trying to be like coercive or deceptive is never going to work. God cannot be mocked. Um, what helps to understand is the relationship with 3D and 4D, right? 3D runs on linear time, right? The perception we have in this 3D world is that of linear time and that things happen in a series of events, right? It's not going to feel natural or believable to us that something's just going to like instantly materialize or that we're going to teleport somewhere else. But in imagination, in 4D, we can experience anything that we want right now. There's no sense of future, there's no sense of past, there's no waiting for anything. We can have any experience that we want right now. So when we imagine something and we imagine to the point of conviction, we experience this thing happening to the point where it feels like this happened. This did happen. I had this experience. Coming out of that and back into the 3D, that's the feeling of it's already done. When we say it's already done, it's done because we experienced it in 4D. It already happened. But knowing and understanding that the 3D works in the series of events, we're not fazed by it. So yes, in that sense, it's a knowing that as far as the 3D concern, it's going to happen because series of events play out. The bridge needs to unfold in 3D. So in that sense, yes. But what we want to avoid is the feeling of like, oh yeah, in the future it's going to take place if we haven't already felt that experience of it's finished in imagination. Once impressed, once we have that in imagination, once we plant that seed, so to speak, then we can walk about our day, we can go about our day, walk in the conviction that that must play out. I hope that makes sense. I know that that one is so cryptic and confusing sometimes. Because naturally, your physical senses can show you and tell you that it's not here in 3D. And we know that. Again, we're not trying to lie to ourselves. This isn't about trying to drive yourself crazy by being delusional. No. I hope that makes sense. Thank you, Kryptonian. Thank you for the super chat. Please see above comments. I revised in SATs for 40 to 60 minutes a day for 20 days. After all this, I feel it's the new memory. But nothing's changed, and my tangent should be massively different if it worked. What now? Good question. So we have to let go of this idea of when it is going to show up. Consciously, we don't know. We don't know. But if we are like saying, okay, after 20 days, it's not here yet, it didn't work, how are we going to know that? Right? We don't know the bridge is unfolding consciously. Inspired action is unconscious action. That's why the whole walk in the faith that it must, and it must, it has to. We don't know the length of time. It could be a day, it could be a week, it could be a month, it could be a couple months. We don't know. We don't know. But if we hold that conviction, despite whatever the 3D is showing or not showing, if we maintain steadfast in that knowing that this has already happened, this is already complete for us, the mirror will reflect that. But not if we're constantly saying, where is it? Where is it? Why is it not here? That's not indicative of a change in self. Then we haven't really changed, right? So I know that that's probably the most frustrating aspect to all of this, but if it feels any kind of questioning or doubt, continue to build your faith as well. Because we want to be trusting and knowing that if we plant that seed, it has to reflect. Period. Period. And if we don't have that conviction yet, then we want to continue to observe. We want to continue to test this until we do. All right. Love you guys. On that note, I do have to get going, unfortunately. This has been wonderful, as always. Fantastic questions today. My apologies if I did not get to you, but we do this every Sunday, 10 a.m. Pacific, thereabouts. So I will be back next week. I hope you all will join me. In the meantime, please take care. You guys have a wonderful rest of your week. Much love to each and every one of you. Don't forget who the power is in your world. Take care, guys. Bye.